Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror. From the time I was 3 to 10 years old, my family lived in a tiny second-floor walk-up apartment in a large city. Our apartment was long and narrow, and my family had to walk through my bedroom to get to the bathroom, so it was a cramped lifestyle, to say the least. Around when I turned 8, my parents decided to offer me a bit of privacy, asking me if I wanted to move into a separate bedroom that had its own entrance and exit from the entry stairwell. It was extremely small, basically a closet, but I was eager to move in there because it was private and at least away from my parents and baby brothers. From the very first night they moved my bed into this room, I saw a very dark, shadowy presence fading in and out of the wall. It had no eyes but razor teeth. Its mouth opened to silently scream. I thought I was going crazy. I never told another soul about it. I saw it nearly every night for 2 years. It was tall and thin and a living shadow. That's all I can do to describe it. The walls were plastered with children's animal-themed wallpaper from the previous owners. If I recall, it had strange little toy animals repeated over and over. Because of the bizarre events happening in that room, this innocent decor seemed ominous. My mother would occasionally come into my room to check on me, and I would be soaked through my pajamas and my own sweat from hiding under the cheap blankets. I was petrified of that room. I was living in hell, but I had no options because my baby brothers now slept in my old room. I became sleep-deprived and unhealthy. I think my teachers might have commented on my deteriorating mental state to my parents. Over that time, I became obsessed with the occult and paranormal. Now that I'm over 50 years old, I feel like that same shadowy entity is still inside me and has been with me my entire life. Could I be possessed by it? My entire life, I was followed around multiple states from childhood to adulthood. I'm not sure who or what it was, but it always found me. It seemed to be trying hard to make me extremely uncomfortable. I was a Christian as a kid, and whenever I used religious calls, prayers, and phrases, it would go away for a while. I spent most of my life pretending not to notice anything, things moving, weight on my bed next to me, strange sounds when it was quiet. Eventually, I lost my belief in Judeo-Christianity, and a pagan friend gave me advice on how to get rid of it. Most of the advice involved a huge lifestyle and personality change: stay positive, know your power over them, and eliminate unnecessary worry and fear. It worked. It took practice, but it worked completely. She explained that religion is often used in these situations because it is rooted in total belief. Belief strengthens intent, but if you have strong intent without belief, it is just as powerful. Either way, my problem was solved for a while. I ended up getting married and having kids, and that made things start happening again in whichever home we lived. I noticed that it was much more difficult to fight negative energy with positive when there are 5 other people in your home adding to the negativity. I can't make them change the way I had to as a young adult. Since then, I've seen signs of activity and immediately turned up my protection. The activity goes away, but it comes back if I let my guard down. It's been a back and forth battle, and I've always handled it pretty well. But about a week ago, I had my first nightmare in years, and my youngest daughter and my wife also had nightmares that same night. I immediately noticed the signs and took my usual steps to make it go away again, but it hasn't been working. The next night, I was in the kitchen late at night, and my dog started growling, baring his teeth, and had his hair standing on end. He's literally never done this. I've had him for 7 months and have never heard him growl unless he's playing with a toy with our other dog. That same night, when I was putting my daughter to sleep, she looked over to the window, glared, and then grabbed onto me and squeezed tight. She kept trying to sneak peeks back over there. The blinds were drawn and the windows were closed. That was the 3rd time that day I caught her staring at nothing, confused and scared. She's also been falling over a lot more lately, sometimes bruising herself. Last night, I told my wife about these signs and asked her to try to stay positive. Stop stressing so much. You know the basics. This isn't the first time we've had these conversations, and she agreed and understood. We went to sleep, but I slept horribly. My wife told me about half an hour ago that at 2 in the morning, our daughter was sleeping at the foot of our bed, which she doesn't usually do, because she loves to snuggle, and she suddenly started screaming horribly. She wasn't moving any part of her body, like something was holding her down. Her eyes were wide open, and she was just screaming bloody murder. I'm at work, but my first instinct is to haul us home and confront it like I've done in the past. But I'm not in the right state to do so. I'm just too angry, and that'll only feed it. My real problem is, I think I've passed a piece of it to my daughter, like a damn virus. The techniques I've been using for 7 years aren't working anymore, and I don't know what to do. I have 2 teenagers and a very stressed out wife. The negativity in my house is off the charts. And if anyone has any advice, it's certainly appreciated. A few years ago, I purchased my childhood home with my husband. The first couple of years, we had a toxic roommate who slowly turned us against each other. Over time, he ended up staying in his room all the time, spiraling into a deep depression. He eventually found a boyfriend and moved out. I wasted no time turning the spare room into guest quarters. I started having horrible insomnia, so to allow my husband to sleep undisturbed, I moved into the guest room. This is where things got dark. I finally found a healthy sleeping pattern that worked for me, and I was finally getting real rest. That's when the nightmares started. There was a clown in the closet, but not just any clown. This one was demonic, evil, and twisted. Side note, I'm not afraid of clowns in the slightest. The clown kept telling me I was to be his bride and that I needed to kill everyone I loved in order to bring him fully into this world. And in my nightmares, I would plan with him and agree. I'd wake up, and the closet door, which had been closed and latched with an old-school hook and eye lock, would be wide open, and everything inside would be disheveled. I started to fear that our ex-roommate's depression had opened a doorway for darkness to enter, since he was in such a vulnerable state when he lived in that room. After weeks and weeks of these nightmares, I decided to cleanse the house. I opened the front door and burned sage. My husband and I both have indigenous ancestry, and the burning of sage is a sacred cleansing tradition passed down by our ancestors. I started in the attic, making sure the smoke reached even the darkest corners, and I cleansed room by room. When I reached the spare room, the light bulb exploded. The doorknobs rattled. But I did not stop. I pushed forward until I felt the energy leave the house. My husband, who had been outside with our dog, knew the exact moment it ended. I never said a word, but he saw the darkness shoot out through the front door. We've had no issues since. The nightmares stopped immediately. The closet door has remained closed and latched. But I will never forget the hopelessness and darkness I felt in those dreams. And I'll never understand why it chose to show itself to me, as a clown. I live with my dad, sister, and cousin. My cousin is male and 16 years old. For some reason, about 1.5 years ago, he decided to summon demons for wealth, better mental health, and who knows what else. I had no idea he'd done this until he started telling me about the strange dreams he was having. That's when I got really worried, because he started describing the exact same dream I had a few nights earlier. Same details, same feelings, only the locations in the house were different. Here's what the dream was like. I started in my bedroom, which is at the top level of our 3-story house. Immediately, I had this overwhelming feeling of doom. I looked down toward the stairs, and there it was. A dark shadow standing halfway down. I ran toward it, trying to rush past to get downstairs, but for some reason I stopped right in front of it. I felt this intense burning inside, like an internal fire of dread and despair. It was the worst feeling of impending doom I've ever experienced. Then it morphed into a dark, shadowy cat. I kind of snapped out of it and ran to the basement. It followed me the whole way. I reached my dad's room, started banging on the door, screaming for help, but everything started losing sound. It was like someone was slowly turning down the volume of the entire world. I was still screaming, but no sound came out. Then I woke up, crying softly like a whimper, trying to catch my breath. When my cousin told me about his dream, it matched mine almost exactly. The difference? His started in his room, which is in the basement. The shadow figure morphed, just like in mine. He ended up banging on my dad's door, too, and the cat rubbed against his leg before he woke up. But it didn't stop there. He's been hearing voices calling his name, growing louder and closer each time. It's happening even when he's away from the house, like at school. He said that today, while walking to the buses, he saw a humanoid shadow figure standing near a barn. There was a loud thumping sound that kept getting closer and louder. He tried calling out to the figure, but it didn't respond. The motion light on the barn turned on, but the figure just stood there, still, dark, and silent. The thumping continued until it suddenly stopped. Then the figure vanished. That's how it's been for a while now. I've had other strange experiences, too, but I really don't know what to make of this. My question is, does anyone know what this is? And more importantly, is there any way I can protect myself from it, or make it go away? On November 25th at 4 a.m., I woke up in a panic. I've been having sleep paralysis this whole month. It always happens every November and especially when I'm stressed. But this time was different. I woke up and managed to pull out of the sleep paralysis fairly quickly, but the moment I did, I felt something watching me. Not just watching, hating me. I sat up fast and looked around my room, which I never do. Usually, after sleep paralysis, I just bury myself deeper under the covers, but this time felt different. I wasn't just scared, I felt like I was in danger. Standing in the doorway of my room was this 8 to 10 foot tall thing. It had the head of a goat, though I don't remember seeing horns, and the body of a gorilla. I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight. I wasn't brave enough to shine it directly into its face, but I illuminated enough of it to see the body and just a glimpse of the face. That was all I needed to see. I screamed, a long, loud scream. Honestly, I dragged it out on purpose, hoping my dad would come save me. Embarrassingly enough, he did. Luckily, my parents still live with me. My dad came barging into the room, paused at the doorway, scanned the room, then ran in. When he ran in, he went right through the thing. I swear, the demon-looking figure grimaced when my dad passed through it, and then it just dispersed. Gone. My dad hugged me for a while before we ended up having a sleepover in the living room with the cats. I know I'm too old to need my dad to hug me to sleep, I'm 30, but that thing scared the life out of me. My dad is almost 60 and extremely into Catholicism. Like, very extreme. He grew up seeing what his grandmother went through. She was a curandera, a village healer. He says he's always been able to see ghosts and demons, and he always has his prayer music on around the house. It wasn't always like this. He used to just mention things now and then, but after going through a stressful situation a few years ago, all of it intensified. I used to think it was religious psychosis, to be honest. I'm not religious at all. The Catholic Church traumatized me growing up, and deep down, I was hoping that all the ghosts, shadows, and demons I've seen were just signs of an overactive REM cycle, or my mind filling in gaps during sleep paralysis. But this thing, the goat-headed, gorilla-bodied creature, looked real. And when the flashlight didn't make it go away, that's when I knew this wasn't just in my head. Edit, a year ago, when I first moved into this house, I didn't have any furniture yet. I fell asleep on the floor of my room to some frequency music playing on YouTube. At some point in the night, it must have autoplayed to a different video. When I woke up, I saw a still image of a priest holding a Bible, praying over a group of people, maybe demons. The image was a reddish hue, and the audio was a priest chanting an exorcist prayer in Latin. What actually woke me up was something tapping my foot, twice. The Latin chanting was still playing. I turned it off quickly and tried to brush it off, hoping that tapping was just a muscle twitch or nervous tick. But now, I'm not so sure. Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.